I'm Dave Molnix. I'm the Green Party Hawaii co-chair with my eminent co-chair, Susan Roberts Emery. And we're having our
You want
statewide
to
convention
learn?
here
I know.
for 2025. This 2025, I think, is going to be an excellent opportunity for the Green Party. It's probably one of the best years in the history of the Green Party. But the duopoly is crumbling. I don't know if you've been noticing, but millions of voters have left both parties. Under the Obama administration, I think over a million left, and after Biden, another millions left. I think from the Democratic Party, and Republicans have been leaking, you know, voters for a long time. So right now, the majority of people in the country see themselves as independent. And one of the beautiful things about the Green Party is if you look at the Green Party platform, that is what the majority of the people in the country want. No matter what party they belong to, we are the party that really represents what the majority of the people want. So this is an excellent opportunity for us this year to grow. Susan's going to be sharing some really good information of some of the things we've already accomplished. We've got some incredible folks who are looking to run this year. There's a lot of good energy out there and enthusiasm. People are looking for something different and better, and the Green Party is that. So this is an exciting year for all of us to get together and really, because that's one of the reasons we're all together here is because we are people who want to make a difference and who can and who have. All of us, I think, have done something to make this world a little better place. The Green Party is full of activists. And if anyone has the ability to make change happen, it's this group, it's you folks. And so we really appreciate anything and everything you've ever done to make this world a better planet. And we're a team. We're all working together here. So I'm going to turn over to my eminent co-chair, Susan Roberts Emery.
Hi, everyone. Yep, I'm Susan here on Big Island. Me and Jimmy are doing our little hosting here. I want to thank everybody for taking the time to show up today. We have an amazing guest speaker, Jim Albertini. He has been an activist and a beautiful human being for the majority of his life, as far as I know. So I'm very excited. I just want to say what is new in the Green Party this year. For one thing, we have Jordan Conley was elected to the IHEA Community Board. So we have somebody, it's a nonpartisan office, but Jordan Conley was elected on Oahu. So yay, we have somebody in a community board. So great. Big Island, we've had a couple of meetups. Just trying to get to know people. That's how I met Jimmy. We go out petitioning together. So I encourage meetups on all the islands so people can go out together. We have t-shirts. I'm wearing the t-shirt. It says Green Party of Hawaii. It has a little lamp on the, you can see it. And then I wrote my own thing saying Hawaii needs a resistance party, a party of resistance. Was that? An opposition party. Sorry, that's what I put. Anyway, $25 for t-shirts. If anybody wants one, please contact me. Let me know. I'd love to sell a few. I purchased them myself, so I'm gonna pay myself back and then the rest goes to the Green Party. So you can email me or put it in the chat. Yes, on Thursday, we had an event, a Juneteenth event. I don't know if that's the first Green Party Juneteenth, but I think it is. Again, that was Jordan Conley and Coda Daly. So we're out there speaking the Green Party and very, very well received. We'll hear more about that from Jordan later. We also have implemented monthly membership meetings. So at one point, we're going to ask after Jim speaks and we're going into the candidates, I would like to ask the question of everyone on this call, how can you help the Green Party? What would you like to see the Green Party do? Can you write op-eds, help on a campaign, do media, be a citizen lobbyist? Website, fundraising, we need help with everything. We are a very small group and we need all hands on deck. And I think this is the year, as Dave was saying, to do that. So And let's see, we've also, the new this year, we bumped our dues up slightly just by $5 from 20 to $25 a year, which is nothing. We also have the option to do monthly donations of $5 or $10, which really helps us because we need money in order to help our communities. And I just want to quickly mention before I turn this over to Jim. We also have a fund for helping our Green Party candidates. And I want to put a big shout out, mahalo to Jeff Turner, who has donated a very generous $1,000 to seed the fund. So thank you, Jeff. We have a candidates fund and we want the best candidates possible out there representing the Green Party this year. So I'm handing it back to Dave and to Jim.
Okay, so thank you for dropping the chat there. I mean the agenda in the chat. So we're moving on to introduce our keynote speaker, Jim Albertini. The legend of Jim Albertini precedes him, and I'm going to read this bio, but I'm going to skip part. Hey, Jim Albertini was born in Pennsylvania in 1946. He moved to Hawaii in 1970 to teach at San Ann's School in Kaneohe on Oahu. Jim was a student of Catholic education for 17 years. He graduated from Villanova University and the same university that the current Pope Leo graduated from. I guess that gives Pope Leo a little more standing. He was a National Science Foundation grantee for graduate work at Buckshot University. Jim was a Vietnam War resister, coordinator of Catholic Action of Hawaii Peace Education Project, as well as co-author of The Dark Side of Paradise for nonviolent resistance to war and injustice. Jim has been in prison for was in prison for some 20 months. Since 1981, he has been a founding member and president of the Center for Nonviolent Education and Action and its Maui Aina farm in Kurdistan on Hawaii Island. His principal activities have been growing food to share with people in need and supporting continued resistance to global militarism and peace and justice efforts, including Hawaiian sovereignty. MauiAina.org. Malu. Sorry about that. MaluAina.org is the organization site. But more than that, like I said, Jim Albertini is a living legend here in Hawaii. I heard about Jim Albertini long before I knew about anything else going on over here. He has been dedicated to peace and justice in Hawaii. He has ongoing resistance sign waving on Hawaii Island. He's been involved in just about every peace action I can think of. When people are talking about peace and justice, Jim Albertini's name is at the top. I've never got to meet him personally, but I consider him a very dear friend for his ongoing efforts to make this world a better place. As I turn it over to Jim Albertini.
Well, thank you, Dave, and aloha to everyone, and mahalo for this invitation to share some thoughts on the military here in Hawaii, especially Pohakuloa. We're gathering at a very ominous time. I just saw the 12 o'clock news that Trump is meeting with his National Security Council again, and B-2 bombers are flying to Guam, and aircraft carriers are now in the Middle East. So we're gearing up for what looks like a global possible nuclear war with Iran and possibly others. So it's a time to really stand up for the call of demilitarizing. And I would add in Hawaii, it's deoccupation as well. They go together, the two. But I'd like to say that that picture is just put up on the screen of that's from one of our peace vigils. We have a Friday peace vigil every week, and that picture there, it's on the corner of Waianui Avenue by the post office, and we have maybe a half a dozen to a dozen people that come out. The ranks are pretty thin. But maybe they'll gear up now with the war climate gearing up. But every week I have the leaflet here in front of me, 1,238 weeks. We've been conducting this peace vigil, and every week I write a new leaflet. They're on our website. And the one yesterday that we handed out was entitled No War on Iran, Step Back from the Brink of Global Nuclear War. And on the other side, it was about $2 billion B-2 bomber. And the comment here that I had on it, a B-2 bomber has been named, quote, the spirit of Hawaii, end quote. Now, how insulting is that to name a B-2 bomber, a global nuclear bomber? There's 20 of them have been built for $2 billion each. To name it the spirit of Hawaii. I just think it shows the lack of respect for the Hawaiian people, right? Spirit of aloha is the spirit of Hawaii. At least it should be. But anyway, I want to start this gathering out with a quote from Gary Hoosier, who you may know. He was a former councilman on Kauai and a Democratic senator for years. But he said this when the Pohakuloa EIS was rejected by the Board of Land and Natural Resources on May 9th. Gary said, I'm quoting here, Pohakuloa is poised to become a political battle like no other. Government leaders at the federal, state, and county level will have to choose which side they're on. The message from a wide variety sector of the community across the archipelago is clear. Pohakuloa is not for sale, lease, or trade. Enough already, end quote. And I think that's a very accurate statement. I was very impressed at that May 9th hearing on the EIS for Pohakuloa. The figures were 1,500 people submitted written testimony. 140 people testified in person, and 70 organizations issued a solidarity statement opposing the EIS and the lease renewal. Now that's pretty impressive, I think, in terms of a broad-based opposition. Now, I just got word today that on this coming Friday, the 27th, there's going to be more hearings before the Board of Land and Natural Resources on 3 military leases on Oahu. So it'd be an important time for people to join in solidarity in opposition to this military occupation. I put it up on our website. The group I give a lot of credit to is Kalahui, Hawaii, and the woman Heilani Sonoda Pali. I think she did a lot of work to organize the testimony for the May 9th meeting, and she's really organizing now for these Oahu military lease hearings coming up, again, Friday the 27th. If you're going to send in written testimony, it has to be in the day before, by the 26th, but you can testify by phone, by Zoom, by a wide range of measures. But anyway, this is an important time to stand up on these issues of the military. I'd like to talk today about some of the history of Pohakuloa, and I'll just do a quick history of my 55 years or more here in Hawaii. When I came here as a school teacher, I was involved in the anti-Vietnam War movement, of course, and I realized how strategic Hawaii was for that Vietnam War, with the headquarters of at that time it was SINCPAC at top of Alava Heights. And of course, Hickam Air Force Base was the headquarters for the Pacific Air Force in 1972, was the heaviest bombing in the history of the world. So I'd done a lot of research on the military. And after the war in 75, that's when I said, we got to start looking into Hawaii's role in the nuclear arms race. And that's when myself and a few friends, we put this book together called The Dark Side of Paradise, Hawaii and the Nuclear
This meeting is
World.
being recorded.
And you can download it for free on our website. It's on the home page. Now, this book was written in 1980. That's 45 years ago, but it's still very timely today. The thing that has changed is the download, or the download in terms of reducing the number of nuclear weapons that are present here. The figure we recorded back in the 1970s was there were over 3,000 nuclear weapons in Hawaii at that time. And There were some minor victories by just encroachment that shut down bases, but also a movement of people. But I'll just mention a few of those things. The major nuclear weapon depot on Oahu in the 70s was Waikele, located in Kipapa Gulch. And there were tunnels into the side of the gulch where the weapons were stored. And Mililani Town was encroaching upon Waikele. So they didn't even have a safety zone for the small amount of conventional weapons in a nuclear weapon. So they had to relocate the nuclear weapons to West Lock of Pearl Harbor. That's as you enter, the entrance of Pearl Harbor. There was an East Lock, Middle Lock, and West Lock. West Lock was the major ammunition storage depot where all ships loaded or unloaded weapons. And they decided to build a major nuclear weapon depot there and maintenance areas. We filed a suit against the military because they weren't doing an environmental impact statement. Now, can you imagine that? They were going to be storing large numbers of nuclear weapons and not doing an EIS. And we got it dismissed at the federal court level, but we appealed it and we won at the Ninth Circuit Court level. And here was the rub. The military neither confirms nor denies the presence of nuclear weapons anywhere. And therefore, they're not going to do an EIS on a nuclear weapon storage maintenance depot. So it was dismissed at the district court level, but we won at the Ninth Circuit Court level. The court said you could do a hypothetical EIS if there were nuclear weapons stored there. What are the dangers of aircraft crashing into that site? Because it's very close on the runway or the flight paths to Honolulu Airport. Also, the danger of accidents, of sabotage, etc. So we won. The military appealed it to the Supreme Court, and of course, the Supreme Court upheld the military position of no EIS. They said that the people have no right to know and nothing to say about nuclear bombs being stored in their backyard. Now, how about that one? Now, that was in the early 80s by the time the Supreme Court handed down that decision. And by that time, I was here on the Big Island doing a lot of research on Puhakoloa and finding out a wide range of things. And that's what I'd like to talk about in detail here today. Puhakoloa, it's a 133,000 acre military base. That's as large as the island of Guam, right? It's nearly 5 times bigger than Kaho'olawe, just to put it in perspective. And it's been bombed and shelled since World War II, so that's 80 years, by a wide range of weapons. Not only it's an Army base, but Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and foreign troops during RIMPAC and other times bomb and shell Puhakoloa. A lot of the material is kept classified, of course. That's the way the military keeps things from the public. But a few things have popped out over the years. One EIS that was done during the Stryker maneuver vehicles that were going to be training there from Schofield, the figure came out that 14.8 million live rounds a year are fired there. That would have been in the early 2000s. Now, just do a little bit of math, 80 years, even lower that to a couple million. And we're talking about hundreds of millions of live rounds have been fired, possibly over 1 billion live rounds fired there since World War II, by a wide range of weapon systems of all these military branches. Now, we had asked the military, starting probably in the 80s and 90s, have you ever used depleted uranium weapons at Puhakoloa? And their answer was no. But in the early 2000s, it was confirmed by a contractor doing a construction project at Schofield that depleted uranium weapons were used at Schofield because they found some kind of pistons or fins. And then the military had to say, well, we likely used them at Puhakoloa too, possibly Makua, Kaho'olawe. And that's when we got radiation monitors. And I remember this day, I'll never forget. It was May 29, 2007. We were at the Mauna Kea Park, now called Gilbert Ke'ele Park, right across from Puhakoloa. They were having the dedication of the Saddle Road, the new Saddle Road. And we had 2 calibrated, certified radiation monitors that day. And the winds were coming from the south, off the base toward the park. And all the major politicians were there, Dan Inouye, the governors, the congressional people, for this dedication ceremony. They had that down in a tent on the New Saddle Road. They kept us demonstrators, we had quite a few dozen, in the park. And that's where we had our monitors. And all of a sudden, the monitors start spiking 3, 4, 5 times background levels. Something in the wind coming off that base, Puakaloa. We knew radiation was coming off the base. So we made a pretty big stink about this. And 3 months later, they officially acknowledged, yes, they used depleted uranium weapons at Puakaloa. But now that they were caught, they try to downplay the situation. And that's their routine. Anyway, we got the county council in 2008, following year, in July of 2008, to have hearings on a resolution that I helped write with the Puna councilwoman, Emily Naioli. And it called for 8 action plans on the depleted uranium at Puakaloa for the military to take. The first one was stopping all live fire and have comprehensive independent testing and monitoring done to determine the full extent of the radiation contamination. And there are 7 other actions that the call for. And there was a lot of public testimony about this. But the military sent over Army colonel from the Schofield Barracks, actually, whatever, the Pacific Army headquarters on Oahu. His name was Howard Killian. And the one thing that he testified to that was rather sobering was that based on the number of people who were certified to fire this Davy Crockett spotting round for the Davy Crockett nuclear weapons system, he said that it's likely 2,000 depleted uranium spotting rounds were fired at Puakaloa. Now, that's what he said. But if you look at military documents, you'll see how they lowball the figure below 400, 5 times less than what their own colonel acknowledged was used. Now, what I found out more recently is Davy Crockett, the Davy Crockett nuclear weapon, which was available and deployed in the 60s, 70s, maybe even into the 80s. There were over a dozen other nuclear weapon systems deployed in the Pacific in places like Korea, Okinawa, probably the Philippines and other places, probably Hawaii too. And that what Howard Killian, the colonel, said is people who are equipped to fire these weapons need to be trained and certified. And that's where the DU comes into play. In my view, probably a lot more depleted uranium spotting rounds. Now, these are the weapons fired to mimic the trajectory of the actual nuclear weapon. And so my own feeling would be that there would be tens of thousands of depleted uranium spotting rounds fired at Puakaloa, based on the number of nuclear weapons deployed in the Pacific. And remember, Puakaloa is called the premier training center of the Pacific for the military, Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines. Now, let me just talk about depleted uranium. When uranium is mined, they extract 235, which is used for fuel for reactors and for making nuclear weapons. That amounts to 0.5 of 1% of the uranium mined. The remaining part, 99.5%, is called depleted uranium. All right. Now they have mountains of this from all the 235 they extracted for power plants and making all the thousands and thousands of nuclear weapons. And they never knew what to do with this. And then they found out, of course, it's very heavy, much heavier than lead. And they started using it anywhere where they needed ballast or weight. So that's why they used it in spotting rounds. They could put the amount in there to mimic the actual firing of a nuclear weapon using this depleted uranium. And they started using it in aircraft where they had to stabilize, put in weight in certain parts, or ships, even sailboats. In the keel, they put depleted uranium in sailboats. So they use it all over the place. Now, mainly, it's not a hazard in its metal form. All right, that's a key point. It's a low radioactive material as a metal. But here's the rub. When those spotting rounds, which is solid DU, are fired into the impact area, that's bombed with millions, maybe a billion other live rounds, high explosive and bombs, and that metal is hit, it burns it, oxidizes the depleted uranium into what's called DU oxide particles. These are submicron particles that then scatter in the wind and can be traveled long distances. And Dr. Lorne Pang, who's an MD and Masters of Public Health, he was 25 years in the Army Medical Corps. He's the Maui County public health doctor, but he has a place here in Volcano on the Big Island. He witnessed nuclear DU weapons being fired. He said puts out an alpha particle. It's not gamma radiation like a nuclear explosion. Alpha particles are the short particles. If you have a particle under a piece of paper and a meteorite above it, you can't pick it up. But here's the rub. If you inhale it, he says it's the most deadly form of radiation. So that's the issue, that Puhakuloa has used depleted uranium since 1960. And that area where they used it is being bombed and shelled for now what? 60 some years with high explosives. So whatever's on the ground, it's aerosolizing it, scattering it in the wind, blowing it around the island. And you know Puhakuloa, there are very strong winds that go through that area, right? So it can be carried long distances. So that's the real issue here, that we're being subjected to that kind of thing. That's what we picked up in our monitors. It's very difficult to detect because, again, it's that alpha particle. It can't be picked up like a gamma particle or a beta particle, which would be much easier. But I think DU is a lot more up there than has been documented. And I think there's a wide range of other toxins that have been used from 80 years of bombing. It's really a toxic waste dump. That's what we have at Puhakuloa. So the bottom line is the bombing needs to be stopped, right? We need to put a lot more energy into high-tech cleanup of these kind of contamination sites than exists today, because that's a very difficult thing to clean up. But that's where resources should go, not into making more of a mess, but in cleaning it up. And I'll just highlight a few of the points that I consider DU. Of course, Puhakuloa is right in the center of the island here, you know. So it's a very dangerous place. Oh, there's another graphic I put on here's a map of the base itself. This is the leased land, the shaded area, and then below it, south of it, is the impact area, 50-some thousand acres, where the things have been fired from the leased land or the firing points, several dozen firing points into the impact area. So, but I was going to mention three things about the depleted uranium. Certainly what's blowing in the wind is the toxic concern, a major one. Another one would be Puhakuloa is at 6,500 feet elevation in the center of our island, above aquifers. So DU and all the other military contaminants used at Puhakuloa have a danger of getting into the water aquifers, like Red Hill on Oahu. And the third one would be the danger of the fires. Now, Puhakuloa, that area of Hawaiian lands, Crown and government land, is Zone Conservation District. That's the highest protected status of land. Now, is bombing and shelling a compatible use with the highest protected status of land? It's a no-brainer. So that automatically ought to cancel any kind of lease renewal or continued bombing and shelling. How can you bomb and shell in a conservation district? Now, the issue is fire, I want to mention too. You know, the EIS on Puhakuloa, there were two drafts and then a final EIS. It said since 1975, most of it was fluff, the EIS. But one of the things that jumped out at me is they said since 1975, 1,261 wildfires have been started at Puhakuloa from bombing and shelling military activities. 1,261. And they also said records prior to 2012 are incomplete, so the number of fires could actually be higher. And they added a third point, which I thought was good. They said, due to climate change and increasing extremes, more high storms, more droughts, the number of wildfires are likely to increase at Puakoloa. So those matters in themselves should be enough to not renew any lease at Puakoloa and stop bombing and shelling. Now, remember what Gary Hoosier said, this is an issue that should be on everybody, federal, state, and county officials' radar, and they should be speaking out about it, but they're not. On that day of the hearing of the BLNR, when the BLNR board, to my surprise, acted to reject the EIS submitted by Puakoloa, saying it wasn't acceptable. Within 2 hours, that decision was made at 6:30 on Friday, May 9th. Within 2 hours of that decision being made public that night, Governor Green issued a statement, and our 4 congressional delegates issued a joint statement, the 4 delegates, saying, while we need to try and deal with concerns, we need to support the U.S. military. Now, that's what our head Democratic Party people said. So that's a call to the Green Party of how much of a sellout the Democratic Party has become to the military war machine. And of course, I don't see anything different with the Republicans. Here we have Donald Trump ready to wage war in Ukraine or in Iran, etc. So anyway, those points about what the governor and the congressional delegates said, and that one map there, I want to give you one other example about Puakoloa and the lies and the thing. That map of the Big Island was showing the military sites. This one that we put together 20 years ago. You can't see it, it's very small there. But that shows 57 sites, present or former, on Hawaii Island are military related. Puakoloa is in the middle. But I'll just mention one site. There could be 157. We've documented 57. But the bigger one right down here, called the Waikea Forest area, that's on Steinbach Highway, going from Hilo to Volcano, which, by the way, is Hilo's watershed. There's a parallel to Puakoloa. Around the same time, the military used the depleted uranium weapons in the 60s at Puakoloa. They got a lease from the state to do what they said was weather testing in the Waikea Forest area. Well, they were lying. They weren't doing weather testing. They're testing chemical, biological weapons in Hilo's watershed, the Waikea Forest, and including sarin nerve gas, which kills at 1/50th of a drop. That's what they're testing in the Hilo watershed. Now, to her credit, Patsy Mink disclosed this, that they weren't doing weather testing. They're testing chemical, biological weapons. And kind of a lot of hell broke loose here. The mayor at the time, Shunichi Kimura, he spoke out and he said, the military lied to us. They said weather testing, not chemical, biological weapons in our watershed. And he said, cancel the lease. And other people spoke out, and the lease was canceled. So there was a victory that should parallel Puakoloa, where they lied that they never used depleted uranium. Now they were caught. It's much more than what they want to account for that they're admitting to even now. So those are the things. So that what's the military going to do with Puakoloa? That's the big question. I've talked to several lawyers on this, and they said it's still not clear. They can do a revised EIS and try to bring it back to the BLNR and have it approved, or else they can take more serious action to bypass the state. And there's a parallel on that map of Puakoloa. If you can go to that screen map, please, Sylvia, the one of the leased lands. There we go, yeah. So that's the leased land is in the cream color. Everything below it, they call it federally owned land. Well, that's another lie. That's federally seized land. And here's the thing that I still don't understand. They got the lease of this land, the 23,000 acres at Pauakola, in 1964. The same year, they got Lyndon Johnson to issue a presidential executive order to seize 84,000 acres, all this land below. Now, why would you both lease land from the state, 23,000 acres, and seize 84,000? They didn't even pay 1 cent for that 84,000 acres. They call it federally owned land. Well, it's not federally owned. They did the same to Kaho'olawe. Kaho'olawe was seized by a presidential executive order. And it was returned, by the way. Of course, there was that grassroots movement of Kaho'olawe, which we need to build at Puakoloa and these other sites. But technically, it was returned by another presidential executive order. And I don't know if you've seen it, but I was shocked to see PBS. They did a story with, remember Pat Saiki, the Republican congresswoman from Hawaii? They did a story. She was running for Senate against Dana Kaka in 1990. And she went into the Oval Office and she said to George Bush Sr., she said, if I'm going to stand a chance to win against a Democrat like a Kaka in a Democratic state, I'm going to need your help. And George Bush Sr. said, what can I do? And Saiki said, well, the hot issue in Hawaii is Kaho'olawe. And that island was taken for bombing by a presidential executive order. And if you would sign a new executive order with me present here in the Oval Office, ending the bombing and returning the land to the state, it could get me a lot of votes as a Republican. And George H.W. Bush, he just looked at his chief of staff and said, do it. No discussion, nothing. The bombing of Kaho'olawe technically was stopped as a political favor to try to get a Republican elected to the Senate from Hawaii. How about that? Rather shocking, isn't it? But that's the politics. That's what politics in Hawaii is all about. And, you know, recently I just saw now Tulsi Gabbard, who's the national intelligence thing. She said in March, Iran had no plans to build a nuclear weapon. Now she's kowtowing to Trump. She supports Trump. Yeah, they're going to build a nuclear weapon. So she just flipped in a matter of a couple of months. So that's the kind of politics we have. That's why the Greens need to play this important role for justice, for peace, for aloha Aina. And I really encourage to make contact with the Hawaiian movement. Now, when I came to Hawaii in 1970 for Vietnam War resistance teaching school, one of the first Hawaiian issues I saw was Kalama Valley, across from Sandy Beach on Oahu, where 32 Hawaiians arrested on their rooftops, being evicted from their farms to make way for a luxury golf course there. And I said, wow, this is what Hawaii is about? Evicting native people to make way for luxury golf courses? So I really started keeping my ear to the ground of the Hawaiian people. And I got involved in Waiho'oli Waikani Valley evictions, Hali Mohalu, the Hawaiians at Pearl City, the leprosy patients, and a number of other struggles. Kaho'olawe movement, I was involved. In fact, I was in Halava jail for a pray-in at Westlock when Walter Riddy and Richard Sawyer were in for occupying Kaho'olawe. We used to play volleyball when we got a break out in the yard. So it's kind of that solidarity. And one final thing on solidarity. There's a picture in this book. I don't know if I can put my fingers on it. Yeah, here it is. This is a picture on page 79 of Auntie Emma DeFries. I don't know if you know her. There myself is behind her there. This is taken out at Westlock. Emma DeFries is the sister of sellout John DeFries, the tourist industry executive, right? And Emma DeFries was a key kupuna in the Kaho'olawe movement. And I got to know her and we were going to have a march on Westlock of Pearl Harbor. And I said, Auntie, I said, can you make any suggestions how we can ground this to the struggles of the Hawaiian people? She said, well, simple. Let's everybody carry keiki kalo, baby taro plant in the march. We had about 200 people going to march from Eva Beach, the back road to the main gate of Westlock. Everybody carrying a baby taro plant. When we got to the main gate, we were going to have a sit-in. About a dozen of us were going to sit in and be arrested. But otherwise, it was going to be a simple, non-violent, peaceful protest, and we always try to do. But what I saw, when the military saw Hawaiian kupuna getting involved, the reaction spoke 1,000 words. They had troops lining the 2 miles of the fences of the march. They had machine gun turrets set up about every 100 yards, 50 yards back into the base. And when we got to the main gate and sat down, we thought, boy, this is going to be rough. The military chained the gates shut for the day. They decided to close the base rather than arrest us. There's a picture in here of Soli Niheo. He's a good friend who helped build the building I'm sitting in. We all volunteer labor here at our farm. That's the kind of solidarity I'm talking about. And the Greens, we need to build this solidarity with the Hawaiian movement. And that's why I say demilitarization and deoccupation go together. So I'm really encouraging. That's what we need to build this movement. So those are some of my thoughts. I have a lot more, but one strategy just on these leases, it's likely whether the military is going to issue a new EIS or whether they're going to try and do other actions. But let's assume they're going to try and do the EIS first, a new EIS. The Board of Land and Natural Resources, it's made of 9 people, all Hawaiians. But some of them, the one guy, Riley Smith, it doesn't sound like a very Hawaiian name. He was the only one that voted for the lease. There was one other abstention by the name of Vernon Char. He abstained from the vote. The rest voted to reject the EIS lease. Riley Smith voted for it, and Vernon Char abstained. Riley Smith's job, he was a big executive at Parker Ranch, involved in, if you can go up on that map of Puakoloa, he was involved in the land sale back during this area. Come down. Down. Oh, you got to go the other way. There, other way. Other way. A little more. A little more. A little more. Oh, too much. Parker Ranch and Tooth there, a little more right here, this area. Keamuku, it's called. It surrounds Waikiki Ranch, in red there. 23,000 acres in 2006. He was the executive of Parker Ranch that sold that land to the military for the Stryker maneuver area. And Don Chang used to be a paid consultant and meeting organizer for the military. She's the chair of the BLNR. So there's real bias for the military. Now, John Chang voted against this lease, but hey, you can't count for it. But what Kimo Frankel, a lawyer with the Sierra Club and others, he said several of these BLNR people are coming up, their terms are expiring. So maybe a concern of the Green Party can look into who would be possible people to replace these people who are being term-cited and get good people on that BLNR board. I want to let you know this, that there's some good staff at BLNR. I'll say this, I won't name a name, but I was alerted ahead of time, a month in advance, that the lease hearing was coming up. They only give you 6 days notice. So I was able to spread the word on a lot of people that, hey, they're trying to do this EIS hearing for the lease renewal, and we got some advance notice. Now, so there's some people, good people writing inside the deal now. Whether they're going to be edited out or fired, who knows, or terminated, we'll see what happens. But those are some examples. I would say Green Party get grounded with the Hawaiian struggles of Kalahui, testify coming up this Friday about the leases on Oahu against the EIS for the lease renewals on Oahu. Talk with Healoni Sonodi Pali. See how you can build bridges with some of the Hawaiian. She's been a key voice in this, and there are likely many other Hawaiians who are key voices in this. But I want to see the Green Party build and link strongly with the Hawaiian struggles and with this demilitarization and deoccupation. The first chapter in our book, The Dark Side of Paradise, was about the U.S. military assisting in the overthrow of Hawaii on behalf of the sugar planters. That's very key, and they've been doing that. It was the first regime change. Now what's happening is the U.S. military is going to be assisting Israel with regime change in Iran. Well, it's been going on well over 100 years, and the native people have had regime change with the U.S. military before Hawaii. So they go together, demilitarization and deoccupation. That's the justice part. Now, I'm afraid on the EIS, a lot of things are being steered to cultural and historic sites, and they're not dealing with the more profound thing of what the U.S. military is all about, or about the contamination. You know, I didn't mention DU. It has a half-life of 4.5 billion years. That's billion with a B. Half-life, which means if you have 10 pounds of depleted uranium, after 4.5 billion years, half of that is still toxic for another 4.5 billion years. Now, here's something, a very specific issue can organize around. Dr. Pang said that base, and this is what that resolution 639-08 called for, was comprehensive independent testing and monitoring. Pang says that base should be ringed 360 degrees with proper air filters, probably of 1 micron in size, around that base for a full year to see what toxins are coming off the base, blowing in the wind, because the wind changes direction, you know. But that would be a key thing. And just another point I'll make is Hawaii Island, Hawaii County, was the first municipality in the entire United States to pass a law declaring itself a nuclear-free zone. I don't know if you're familiar with that. 1981. Moani Kealaakaka deserves a lot of credit. I was working with her too. But the first nuclear-free zone in the United States was Hawaii County. There are hundreds now, including Chicago, that have passed nuclear-free laws, similar to Hawaii County. But here's the rub. After the law was passed, we had these visiting warships coming in for the Chamber of Commerce Festival and also terribly for the Merry Monarch Festival. I thought, why would Hawaiians want to invite a nuclear warship to come for a Merry Monarch Festival when it was the U.S. Navy's warship that assisted in the overthrow of Hawaii, the USS Boston overthrowing Queen Liliuokalani in 1893. That's like inviting the Ku Klux Klan to a civil rights rally. It didn't make any sense to me. But anyway, the ships came in for those two festivals. We set up picket lines of the ships. There, in those days, you could go right down on the Hilo docks. Now, today, you can't get in since 9/11, right? They keep you outside the dock. And we handed out leaflets and picketed the warships coming in. And finally, after 3 years, this would have been June of '84, we said, look, the next ship that comes in, if it's a nuclear ship, we're going to have a swimming protest against it. Not just here picket it and hand out leaflets. You know, we have a law, a nuclear-free zone here. You keep your nuclear shoes at Pearl Harbor. Don't bring them into our house over here. Well, that's when we knew all hell would break loose. So here's what happened. The military asked the Coast Guard to declare Hilo Bay a federal security zone, kind of worse than these ice zones that are happening now. Federal security zone on the day the ship arrived. If you put your toe in the water with a protest sign, you're subject to a felony. The other thing that happened was Steve Yamashiro, who was a real right-winger, head of the county council, he introduced emergency legislation to exempt the military from the nuclear-free law. Now, can you imagine? That's like having a no-smoking law and exempt the smokers. And I think he violated the Sunshine Law requirements of proper notice of 6 days for 2 weeks or something. He passed this emergency legislation, and the morning the ship arrived, the mayor at the time, I forget who it was, he signed the law into action. So we had 500 people down on the Hilo docks that day. That was a pretty big crowd. And we had 100 wanting to go in the water to protest the ship. But as nonviolent activists, I had to say, look, don't do the right thing for the wrong reason. You can't do this on emotion when it's threatening a felony. This will follow you around the rest of your life. You need to discuss it with your family, think it through. So we had actually put together nonviolent training sessions ahead of time, but people didn't want to come or something. But 3 of us entered the water, myself, a good friend who was a former naval officer, Warren Weinman, and a third friend, a farmer, Jim Schneider. We entered the water. Hilo Bay was a war zone. They had Coast Guard cutters and other ships escorting the warship coming in. They brought in naval SEAL teams from Oahu and Zodiacs in the bay. and they had helicopters, several helicopters overhead. So we knew we were in the water, swimming toward the ship, hands up, stop, and we were arrested and taken out and eventually prosecuted. I'll just do the longest story. They brought in a federal judge from the continent, 29 years in the Navy as a lieutenant commander for our trial, declared our law, nuclear-free law, irrelevant, found us guilty, sentenced me to the maximum penalty, 3 years in prison, federal prison, for a swim in Hilo Bay. Fortunately, I spent a little over a year for that particular action and was kicked out because of international protests. I had spoken all around the Pacific, and members of parliament in Australia, New Zealand, and other countries were writing and expressing support. Nobody ever got 3 days in jail, let alone a 3-year sentence. And the nuclear-free independent Pacific movement had a strong movement against nuclear warships in the 70s and 80s. So anyway, the good news is of this nuclear-free law. In December of this year, December 1st, I think it was, the county council repealed the military exemption from the nuclear-free law. Last July, July 24, it was the 40th anniversary of the warship blockade. So I wrote several of the council people. I said, this would be a good year to repeal the military exemption and restore the original nuclear-free law. So the council chair at the time, what is his name? Oleka from Kona. He introduced the bill, and it had 2 hearings. It was a little opposition, but we had a lot of people support. And it finally passed in November, and Mitch Roth was on his way out and Alameda on his way in. But Mitch Roth, he could have vetoed it, and then it would have required a 2/3 vote to override. It passed by unanimously, but then there were a couple new council people coming in. But anyway, Mitch Roth just let it become law. He didn't sign it. He didn't veto it. So the bill, the nuclear-free law, has been restored to its original form for Hawaii County. So now is a chance even to speak up stronger again about the military DU here for cleanup. Anyway, I think I should stop here. I've been going on a long time. I'd be glad to take any question. Oh, one final point, brief. Nonviolence, kapu aloha. That's been my guiding light for 60 years of activism. And I really find it as a solid principle. That was a principle up at Mauna Kea. I was arrested twice there, 2015 and 2019, in support of the Hawaiians trying to protect their site. By the way, Hawaiian kupuna have called Puhakuloa, not Long Rock, but the land of the night of long prayer. That's what I've heard. Pohakuloa. Pohaku, like the lei, the land of the night of long prayer. But nonviolence has to be our guiding light. I learned that principle in 1968, Veterans Day of 1968, when myself and 2 teachers were picketing a draft board in Pennsylvania. And we made mistakes, 2 mistakes. We didn't survey the site of the draft board ahead of time and realize around the corner was a bar room. And on Veterans Day, by 3 o'clock, when we got out of school, started to picket, there likely be a lot of drunken veterans in that bar room. So we should have checked it out. And the second mistake was, and this is a very important one, never make a picket sign out of something you're not willing to be beaten over the head with. Don't use 2x4s or 2x, because we were beaten by these drunken vets, but we didn't resist. And the irony was the vets and us teachers, we're in suits and tie. We're all in the paddy wagon taken to jail, handcuffed, of course. And then people from the community came out and said, look, these teachers peacefully picking, and they were attacked by these drunken veterans. So we were released, the teachers, and the police said, well, you can press charges for assault if you want. We said, we don't want to do that either. We believe in nonviolence, but please remind them when they sober up that there's a thing called the First Amendment, free speech. And we were trying to be peaceful, nonviolent, free speech. So anyway, I urge all of you, commit yourself to Gandhi, Martin Luther King, the movement for kapu aloha on the Mauna, nonviolence. Mahalo.
Thank you, Jim. That was There was no reason to stop you, and I really appreciate you sharing such an in-depth history. Um, that was well appreciated. Because this kind of history is completely deleted from and censored. And this is the real history of the islands, the real history of the people of Hawaii. And we sincerely appreciate you sharing this. We're supposed to end this section in about 4 minutes. Do we want to extend this a little bit, or for quick Q&A, or how do we like to go forward? Okay, and we'll give it another 10 minutes at least to a quarter after. So if anyone have any questions, just raise your hand, or you can do it electronically. And please keep your question to like a minute, because we have a tendency, not being young anymore, to go on and on and on. So Susan, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Jim. That was fantastic. So Dave and I were just talking about this conundrum that we have here in Hawaii. We would love to have an interaction with the local Hawaiians on this exact issue and other issues, but it's hard to crack the code. So what I would like to do, Jim, is come meet with you possibly at your place and face to face and talk about it and see how, because I do see the Green Party as being pivotal in this as a legislative olive branch that we can work to push the military off the islands or, support the Hawaiians, but we need to gain their trust. And I will look for you to help us with that because Dave and I were talking this exact thing. So any help would be grateful.
Yeah. Well, again, I would suggest Healani Sonoda Pali, Kalahui. You can go to their website now. She would be a key person. She's organizing a lot of opposition. Oh, and the thing I didn't mention was that hearing on May 9th against Puhakaloa, where 140 people testified in person and 1,500 submitted written statements. I watched from 9 in the morning when it started to 1:30 when I had to pack up. They broke for lunch at 1:30. I had to pack up and go to our peace vigil. But I was impressed at so many young Hawaiians speaking articulately and passionately against these military leases and what the military. They mentioned the depleted uranium a lot, but a lot was about historic, cultural, sites, their connection to the land. So it's really, I think that's a group to me that I saw real vitality. So linking up, I would urge you to look at the Kalahui website. And I don't know Iolani well myself, but I met her. She was at there was the Merry Monarch Parade, and I always march with the Hawaiians. I think there's only a few of us Howleys in the parade, but it's Merry Monarch Parade. There's an Aloha Aina contingent, and they have chants of Aloha Aina Hawaii, Aloha Aina Mauna Kea, Aloha Aina Puhakaloa. Those were their chants. And to me, that's how you build the solidarity, getting involved, huh? So put it on your calendar for the next Merry Monarch Parade. March with the Hawaiians, Aloha Aina contingent.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. I know Heilani very well. We've been organizing with her against Red Hill. And the other group who's working on this, on the leases, is Sierra Club, Wayne Tanaka. So we do have to build more of a movement. More people need to understand that these leases affect everyone. You talk about the depleted uranium is just like the tip of the iceberg. There's PFAS. There's so many toxic chemicals. I can't remember my friend Melia Duha. She has I think there's several dozen. I don't know how many dozens of toxic waste sites in Hawaii created by the military. So this is a major issue that we need to educate people on, that the military is the evil in Hawaii, and we need to be standing up to protect the Aina and the people. We have a question there from Ramona. Go ahead, Ramona.
Sorry. So I just wondered, what year was it that you swam the ocean and got arrested? I just want to get that in my mind firmly.
The Hilo blockade was 1984. The nuclear free law was 1981, and 3 years later, 1984, July of '84 was a swimming protest in Hilo Bay. Height of the Cold War, right? It wasn't a very popular time.
It wasn't. Okay, Charles.
Thank you for that.
I am kind of a student of religion, and I have this sensibility of the importance of some kind of sense of the sacred. And I went on a hike with the Sierra Club, and we went out into the countryside. I live in Makaha, in Waianae, and because I like to be close to nature, across the highway is our goats, wild goats. There's, I'm close to nature. I grew up in North Dakota, so I have this sense of the sacred of nature, and I think that many times in politics, people get caught up in ideology, because when I went on this hike with the Sierra Club members, we got out into the countryside and with nature, and all they wanted to do was sit around and talk politics. And they didn't really have this sense that nature is a really sacred place. And one of the things that was the strength, that I believe, of Martin Luther King was that he did have that, that there were a lot of religious leaders who were part of his movement who understood that there's something sacred about a human being that is irrespective of their, he, like he said, he has this dream, where a person is judged by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin. And so I really think that this is something that's important, and that it can help to make a bigger tent for the Green Party. One of the questions, I guess, and this is supposed to be a question, is the question of ranked choice voting. I really don't know that much about it, but here in Hawaii, and if that is having an influence on getting more progressive candidates into office, because I see that one of the major issues, because we're talking about the military, and military is just basically a branch of the oligarchy, and their sense of domination and control, and the threat of violence in order to get what they want. They're basically terrorists, and so anyway, I'll just drop it there.
Okay, so you don't have the ranked choice voting. I don't know how much Jim knows about that. The Green Party does, and we can talk about that maybe another time. We're just trying to keep our questions here to Jim. So thank you for those comments, though. Those were great. So Jim, you've been in the movement for a long time. I've been in the movement for a long time, about at the same time, I think. So what are your words of wisdom to help people, organize and get together? And, how can we, because, this is David and Goliath stuff, right? And so what kind of words of wisdom can you share with us on how to fight this giant?
Well, just to get back to Charles' question there on the sacred, the Mauna movement, and of course the testimonies on Puako Loa, the people were talking about the sacred, how they view these areas as their sacred sites. I have a degree in theology, and I taught theology in the school, theology, ecology. So I agree with Martin Luther King getting down there. So the sacred is very important to me, and I see it in the Native Hawaiian struggles too. We're different, coming from different points, but we agree that it's on the sacred. But I would say, I look at my own experience. Getting involved on the grassroots level with Hawaiian movements is very important. We got to build our solidarity. So it's got to be aloha Aina, justice, peace. Those three things as our grounding work. But there's a lot of Hawaiian struggles. The fact that there's more Hawaiians living outside of Hawaii than in Hawaii today because of being priced out of paradise, their homeland, and the billionaire class taking over the sugar baron class that exploited Hawaii. That's big. So I wrote some things on this billionaire class, but we need to speak up and expose this more. On this island, Big Island, we have Sam Altman over in Kona, Michael Dell Computers. We have Benioff, who's putting his name on everything. In fact, I hear it's going to be called the Benioff Bayou off Big Island before long. Maui, we have Jeff Bezos, Peter Thiel, a Palantir, or Maui. And then we have Zuckerberg and Ed Case's cousin, Steve Case, who owns 40,000 acres on Kauai. I mean, they're just a few of the billionaires. There's a lot more of them around here, too. But that's what's happening in Hawaii. It's this billionaire takeover here. Uh, we picketed Kukio. Have you heard of Kukio? That's north of the Kona airport. Just my friend Shannon Rudolph over in Kona, I said, let me know, Shannon, when you can see more than 50 private jets at the Kona airport. So she called me years back, and I organized a picket line of Kukio because that's where so many private jets on holidays here on the Big Island that they have to send the planes from Kona to Hilo and Maui to park because they don't have room at Kona. And here's the former county councilman from Kona side. What was his name? Kelly Greenwell. He said to me one day, this is years back, he said, Jim, you know how much they charge them to park their private jets? The same as it costs you to park your clunker car at the airport overnight. Park a $50 to $100 million private jet. And now they've even built their own terminal. I think probably taxpayers built their own terminal they don't have to go through the public terminal. They have their own private terminal for the private jets on Kona side. But that's what we're pushing people out of Hawaii. So we got to stand with them. My decision after I was fired from school teaching in '72 for Vietnam War resistance, and the University Christian Ministry gave me a job at the University of Hawaii to set up a peace education project. And that's what I did from '72 until I moved here, the Big Island, in '81. And I had a income from that. But I was feeling very drawn away from an academic setting, much more the grassroots. So I used to talk about the need to be rooted on the land as a base for our struggles. And that's when a local family said, hey, we have a piece of land in Kurtistown, Ola'a, really. Kurtistown is the sugar colonial name. But they said, we'd be glad to donate it if you can make use of the land. And I said, I don't want that land in my name for principled reasons and practical reasons. Every time you're arrested and drawn into court, the first question you're asked is, what assets do you have? Because they'll seize your asset. So we formed a nonprofit land trust and put the land in the land trust. And hopefully we pass for future generations of activists. We made a principled decision. No government money, no big foundation money. Support by the grassroots. And that's how we've lived here for 45 years. Growing our own food, building our own houses. We even had to build them with permits because we knew we'd get attacked by the establishment if we didn't. A lot of people living out in Puna, no permits, nothing. But when you're an activist, and just to underscore this, a friend of mine who retired editor from the Advertiser, Mike Middlesworth, who died a couple of years ago, he gave me a form letter one day about 4 years ago. He said, hey, Jim, you should submit this. Ask for your FBI files, what they have on you. So I submitted it. And I got a letter back from the FBI saying, Mr. Albertini, we have 1,308 pages of files on you. You're in the rather large category. But some of these files have been initiated by other agencies, so we can't release them. We can't tell you who they are. So I've only gotten about 100 and some pages of files, and half the material on those pages is blacked out to protect the spy's right of privacy. But I know we're under surveillance. And with this Palantir thing that Trump is getting with Peter Thiel, have you heard about that Palantir surveillance system? That's how every data on every person in the United States will all be under government control. They'll know everything about it. So anyway,
Thank you.
that
Thank
also
you.
is the irony of that. We got to do everything up front. We made no illegal drugs on the premises. That's been the position for 45 years because they'd love to crack you for illegal drugs like they did in the Vietnam movement. The whites were using marijuana, the blacks were using hard drugs, divide up the movement and discredit the people.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you, Jim. So we only have a few minutes left. Nick, you have a quick question, and then Susan has a quick question. Keep your question real short to Jim. Go ahead, Nick.
Thanks, Dave. Thank you, Jim, for your presentation today and for everything you've done for all these years.
Thank you.
You left off Larry Ellison, who owns Lanai.
Right.
And Charles had a question, and I'll keep it really brief, or a statement. You want to know about ranked choice voting. Charles, you can look it up. There's lots of information online. The Green Party of Hawaii and the Green Party of the United States has had ranked choice voting. It used to be called instant runoff voting, at least since 1992, when I got involved in the Green Party. And Susan, I want to thank for every year testifying and submitting legislation to the state legislature. And every year it's discussed, and every year it's in committee, and every year the Democrats block it. It is very, very important. It's all over the country. The most famous recently is New York City. Mahalo.
Thank you, Nick. Susan, you had a question?
Jim, this is Jimmy. Thank you so much. I had two quick questions. One is about if there is a forum to build coalition or something that's already brings different groups together to form a movement here on the island. Like, you're talking about like faith community, so basically be like faith community, peace community, environmental groups, and then also with the legal support. Because when you're talking about, this is my second question, is about, is there a resource locally that that provides support to nonprofits or that we could tie into as a party to find out the feasibility of certain efforts? Like you talked about the nuclear-free county law. So what the logistical part of that to determine its feasibility, and then the step-by-step action plan and legal support. So I'm just wondering if you have any comments about that. Thank you.
Before I get to that, let me just a brief comment for Nick on Larry Ellison on Lanai. You know who vacations there more than once? Bibi Netanyahu from Israel has vacationed on Lanai. Good friend of Larry Ellison. Back to the question. That's an important question you're saying about how do we build and where are the steps to build this kind of coalition and solidarity. Gee, I wish I had an answer on that. I just don't know. But I would say, here I'm getting close to 80 years old. So I'm in the twilight years, out of the link. It's got to be more of the younger people coming together. And I just see like the Kalahui, Healani Sonotapali is a key person. And these hearings, go to these hearings, people on Oahu, they're going to be in front of the BLNR this coming Friday, and talk to some of I'm sure the young people are going to come out again. And if you can't go, watch the hearings by Zoom and find people from your islands that testify, make contact with them, build it from the grassroots up, what I'd say.
I'd just like to jump in there, Jim and Jimmy. Let's work together and build that movement. Let's just reach out to Heilani. And we know a lot of folks, and if we just if we build it, they will come. So let's get together after this and talk, not today, but let's talk about this further, because that's how movements start, right? A couple people get together and say, let's start moving in that direction, and other people will come. Jim, I just want to, once again, we just are so appreciative for you coming and sharing and getting people to realize that the Green Party is probably the only party right now that's working in the direction that for peace and justice that needs to happen. And your encouragement for the Green Party to get involved in these leases and involved in what's going on with the military in Hawaii, that is so inspirational. And we are the party who should be doing that. And so thank you for putting that challenge out there. And that's why we really had you come, because we accept that challenge. We want to be more involved. And so thank you so much. Any last comments to Jim before we move on to our next section? Any final comments from you, Jim?
Just mahalo for your comments there and for everybody here. I mean, that's why I was willing to come and share, because I see the hope is in people like the Green Party, the Democratic Party, and the Republican Party. that they're warmongering parties. And so they've lost any sense. I saw it in the election. Wouldn't speak out against Israel and Gaza, right? Wouldn't speak out against the war there. And Puakoloa. Where is the voice of any politician on a county, state, federal level that's calling for shutting down that base and stopping the bombing and cleaning it up? It's not there. So we got to create that voice. And the Greens seem like the people to do it. So mahalo and aloha.
Well, hello, Jim. You are the best, and thank you for your ongoing efforts. And we'll see you on the front lines.
Okay.
Okay, we're moving on to
The recording has stopped.
Too many candidates who've showed up today, but we do have Jackie Keith. Who do we have anybody else other than Jackie? I know Jordan was going to try to come. Well, we'll just start with that. We candidates are so important for the Green Party. And we need good quality candidates.
This meeting is being recorded.
So many great folks out there who could be candidates. You all know them, aunties and uncles, folks who've been in the trenches for a long time. We need to reach out to them and just ask them. I think a lot of people may have thought about it, but no one ever asked them. The reason Bernie Sanders ran for president, because my good friend Tim Carpenter asked him. Nobody asked Bernie, so he ran. I'm not, but that does make a difference. So think about the folks you know. There are a lot of activists out there, a lot of well-informed people who would be great if they got elected, and we need a lot of women. We are just outnumbered for women. And on Maui, we have Jackie Keefe. She was going to run last time, but we had a big fire over there on Maui. And that took a lot of energy and wind out of her sails. We really appreciate her even thinking about it. It was a great gift to us when she said she was going to run. And so, but now she may be thinking about running again. If not this time, maybe next time. But we need that women energy in our legislature and in our county councils. Because the women are the mothers of our planet. And so we need that kind of energy. So I'd like to turn it over to Jackie for, I guess, 5 minutes here to just share a little bit about herself and about, about maybe she'll run again. Go ahead, Jackie.
Yeah, mahalo nui, Dave. I appreciate that, and I want to shout out Maui County because we do have a super majority of women on our county council. So, just wanted to throw that out there to start. But I'm gonna first share the speech that I wrote to give to you folks, and then just tack on some other things that have come up. So my name is Jackie Keefe. I'm a community advocate and a public servant. I'm dedicated to social and environmental justice. I'm a relatively new member of the Green Party. I joined last year because I was planning on running, and it just did not feel right to me to run as a Democrat, even though everyone told me that's the only way that I could possibly win. I've always been independent, and I was shocked when I found out that you have to be registered to a party here to be able to vote in primaries. That was one of the things that got me on the ranked choice voting path. But I believe in real engagement. I believe in turning out new voters. We have so many folks who deeply care, but they feel unrepresented or repressed by our current system. And I believe that we need to be the change that we wish to see. And that includes creating a political system that works for all of us, not just the rich or those already in power. This morning, my best friend said something that stuck with me. I told her I had some trash to pick up on my way home from the farmer's market. And she said, "There you go again, saving the world on your day off." And it made me laugh, but it also lit up something in my brain. Like, this isn't heroism. Like, this is what I consider to be everyone's kuleana. It's a shared responsibility to care for one another and the place that we call home. And as someone who lives in Hawaii as a white settler, I know our values have to be grounded in respect for Aina and for the people whose ancestors stewarded this land long before us, and before we ruined it. Environmentalism is not the only value that we share with Native Hawaiians. And that's why I was so energized by Jim's speech, because I had already planned to speak today about the Green Party of Hawaii's urgent need to become a principled partner with the Aloha Aina movement and the broader Native Hawaiian sovereignty movement. I am a part of the 2025 Kuleana Academy cohort, and I do plan to use that current growing network of passionate organizers to better understand how we can support and not co-opt movements rooted in Aloha Aina. I have also recently joined a summer leadership program called LEAD, Legal Empowerment and Advocacy Development, organized by Speak Out and Up Law, alongside 12 other Maui-based community advocates. I do intend to use every space I'm in to figure out how we can advance this mission together. A couple of the notes that I jotted down, you know, you folks mentioned Wayne Tanaka. He was at our first in-person weekend for Kuleana Academy. It was him and Marty Townsend doing a presentation together, and I introduced her. And being in the organizing space and seeing the different abilities that people have, you know, she is so powerful at engaging people and getting people excited about these really depressing topics. And he's not a great speaker. He's very smart, but he's not super engaging. And so there's this need for balance in that way. But I think we also need to make sure that we're putting ourselves in rooms where we are not the smartest people. I never want to be the smartest person in a room. I don't think that serves any of us. And I also want to echo what Jim said about getting involved, because I have found in the past, 22 and a half months now since the fires, that showing up is such a huge part of gaining people's trust and integrating with the Native Hawaiian sovereignty movement, because that's what it takes, is showing up and recognizing our settlerism and the fact that, you know, we are a part of the colonial structure that got us here, and like what we can do to work together. But I also think it's really important, you know, I was reading the difference between the Aloha Aina platform and the Green Party's platform, and Hawaii specifically. And obviously Aloha Aina is for Hawaii. This is like a Hawaiian sovereignty movement. It's grounded in culture, and the Green Party is more like aligned with the nationalist kind of settler view of that. And while we have a lot of overlap, there's definitely the need to make sure that we are elevating their voices. And so like I went to this speech with Walter Ritty from Aina Mamona. He just did like this talk it wasn't really a speech, it was a talk story at the Sphere at the Ocean Center a few weeks back. I think my concept of time is non-existent anymore. And showing up has really been a part of that, you know, just there's like community plantings and I'm like, obviously that's a Maui thing right now, but I know it's happening in other places. I know that, you know, that's one of the things that has given Senator Awa such a following, is the whole like guerrilla planting. That's something that's happening here, and I'm sure it's happening on your islands as well. So really just like showing up in these spaces that are, because Aina is really like, everything is Aina. We are Aina, Vai is Aina, like everything is connected. And so really showing how passionate we are about Aina, I think is like such a huge ticket to making that connection. And then bringing groups together to that point, that's something that a lot of nonprofits speak concern about. They really want for there to be an opportunity for people to come together, and they recognize that there's a lot of overlap and there's probably redundancies in a lot of the things that these folks are doing, but bandwidth is so limited, capacity is so limited in all of these organizations that it's really hard. And so if people do have that capacity to be able to show up and make those connections, that's really a big part of how I've garnered the name recognition that I have in the past 2 years, because I just show up everywhere that I'm invited. Some places I'm not invited and eventually get accepted. And that's just been a really huge part of it for me. And then the last thing I wanted to touch on was the ranked choice voting question, because this has been another thing I've become really passionate about. And I did actually see, not this session, but last session, so 2024, sorry. There was a bill proposed to ban ranked choice voting. And the only legalized ranked choice voting that we have in the state of Hawaii is for special elections. So when I reached out and I asked about this, and I was like, hey, like, what's up? Maybe can we get like actual ranked choice voting? And basically the answer I got was, well, like, let's see how this goes first, right? Like, no one is interested. And so I think that's a really big piece of why I want to run green and why I want to connect the Aloha Aina and Green Party movements, because there are so many people who really care that are just like, fuck the Democrats and the Republicans. Like, fuck the two-party system, part of my potty mouth, but that is the language that I'm hearing. And the amount of people who have said to me, like, oh, I wouldn't vote for you as a Democrat, but I would vote for you as a Green Party. Or, oh, that's perfect for here, when you like explain what Green Party is, right? And I was kind of trying to compare, like come up with a easy comparison for people. And what I found in my research is that it's oversimplified, but a way to compare it is kind of like the Green Party is like a settler version of Aloha Aina. Because for me, like, I wouldn't feel comfortable trying to be a part of the Aloha Aina movement because it is Hawaiian led and it is culturally grounded. And as much as that aligns with my values, I am Irish, like 97%. Like, I do not feel that that is within my capacity. And so I really wanted to highlight those things, because that's just really what I've found in the past almost 2 years at this point of being in this space. And I did forget to mention, because I didn't write it down because you said it right before I spoke, but part of the reason that I pulled papers, I filed my candidacy, like I was in. But when I got to the point where I realized, this was last year for Senator McKelvey's seat, so the state Senate seat for Kihei and Lahaina, when I realized that to get the name recognition that I would really need to win, that I would have to fundraise, it just felt really gross after the fires. And I just felt that I needed to, if I was going to raise money, it needed to be for a better cause. So I actually like started a 501c4. So that's why I took my name off the ballot, and then like ended up working for a couple other nonprofits. So I really haven't done anything with my C4, but I wanted to keep things legitimate and make sure I wasn't putting myself in a space like that. But I feel very differently now that I've personally met Ellie Cochran and that I've seen Senator McKelvey step up in his role since the fires and really listen to and respond to the community, while subsequently watching Ellie Cochran not show up for us. She showed up for the midwives. Like, my midwife friends are obsessed because that is like kind of what her passion was and where she focused. But in terms of our other community, they just felt really let down. And there was a lot of like really important, Hawaiian Homelands votes that she missed. And she still got $23,000 in per diem that she wasn't there for, and things like that. And so that has opened me up to running for her seat. So I am intending to run for District 14's state representative seat in 2026. So
Thank you, Jackie. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing all of that. We have
Yeah,
one other
thanks.
candidate, former candidate, Rita Ryan here. And Rita ran this last session. I don't know if she's going to run again. She may not, but she's also maybe willing to be a campaign manager or at least help other people run, as she's done in the past. So I'll give 5 minutes over here to Rita Ryan.
Oh gosh, I didn't even know I was on the agenda. I didn't have much prepared.
Well, you can speak for a minute and a half, whatever you want to say, just to
Sure.
give
Yeah,
us
sure.
some wisdom from running.
Absolutely. Oh, well, I learned so much about running, and you're very disabled if you don't have campaign funds, and we don't take big business campaign funds, which can put us at a disadvantage. So I think microfunding the campaign needs to start early, and to get that going, because I had a $20 campaign fund. Thank you, Susan. There was a lot of things going into it. I did wrong. I did everything wrong, about even, getting the votes. More than half of my votes were people with post office boxes, for instance. That didn't work. And they got thrown out. There was a lot of things that happened there. I wasn't supported by some of the groups that I should have been supported by, that made a difference, I think. So I think getting out there early and letting people know about your candidacy. I was actually the very last candidate in the state to pull papers, and literally did it at 5 minutes before the 4 o'clock deadline, got it all done. So I think that we can improve by helping candidates through that process. I certainly can help candidates through that process because I've learned so much. And also, getting those donations going, because it does cost money to run for office. There are, you've got to have your banners up with everybody else's banners at the roadside. You have to have your campaign swag. You have to go to all of the different functions, all of the different, churches and businesses and organizations that ask the candidates to come and speak. And you have to have your cards and your, little piece of candy or whatever. Mine was organic and organic fruit rolls and non-GMO. So, all of those things really add up. So, there was this little things about the campaign. I had no idea. I tried to, read what was written about campaigns and what to be prepared for, but 80% of it wasn't on there. So that was interesting. I really want to get the Green Party moving on Maui, because I think, if we can't do it on Maui, then there's a serious problem. I did get some votes, but I was up against, Kali Yamashita, who is got the longest, held his seat the longest in the House of Representatives. I'm up here in upcountry Maui. And he was just sort of a given. And I noticed that voters were not informed. They were not informed about what he was doing on the finance committee. Now, since the election, he was voted out of the finance committee because of his shenanigans, because he was holding up bills, because he was just burying them in his office. And still, upcountry voters are not aware of that. I'm still making upcountry voters aware of that. So I really think getting out and talking to the community, going door to door where you can. There's some places, the branches and whatnot are very difficult to go door to door. But, in the neighborhoods, that sort of thing really, really helps. And people are really kaput with the two-party system. In fact, when I was out trying to just get on the ballot, and I would talk to people and then they'd walk away like, nah, I don't vote. And then they go, wait, what party are you with? And then I'd say Green Party. They're like, oh, never mind, I am registered after all. And they would come back and sign. And so people were very interested in a new party, in a Green Party, I think I didn't get my name out there as widespread as I could have because I was late to the game. I did my best, and I wanted to make sure that we showed up on the ballot here on Maui, So for that part, it was a success. The Green Party was on the ballot in Maui, and we got to just kind of keep that momentum going. Nick has always been on the ballot before, but he wasn't this last year. So I was the only Green Party candidate, and we need to keep at least one candidate on the ballot, if not 10 or 20. And we have to support each other and how to do that. And certainly I learned so much from my mistakes. I think they were valuable mistakes. And I want to make sure that other candidates can also learn from my mistakes. I probably won't be running unless absolutely nobody runs on the Green Party, but it sounds like Jackie will. I don't know if Nick, if you're in or not, but I think really talking between elections, don't wait till election time, and talking to people about the Green Party, who we are, that sort of thing. That's what I've been doing since last year's election, is really letting people know who the Green Party is and what we represent and what we stand for and what is nobody, ranked choice voting. I don't think one person knew what that meant that I spoke to about it, and it's a little bit difficult to describe. We kind of need an elevator speech around that, and some information around that. But I don't know, that's my 5 minutes, Dave, I think off the top of my head. And I think, just all of us getting together and supporting those candidates that, do have the bravery, like Jackie, to step out there, and get on the ballot and inform people. We need to, because, so many people have aligned themselves. I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, I'm a this, I'm a that, but really most people are in the middle. Most people are independent, not Democrat or Republican. So we've got this opportunity to really capture that group of people, and more people are just becoming tired of their party, just absolutely disgusted with what's going on in the bipartisan politics. So I think we have a real opportunity, and I think next year is going to be really exciting, really, and I'm really looking forward to getting Green Party candidates out there next year.
You, Rita, I mean, for your courage and for running, that was amazing. You took on the beast, and you were really very brave to run. And we just didn't have enough people to support you, unfortunately. And that's the other thing. If you folks are not going to run, which most of us are not, please get involved in these campaigns and support these candidates. Anything you can do. If you go out there only one day and wave a sign, that will be something that gives them a little bit of encouragement. Send them $5. I mean, geez, you spend more of that on a latte at Starbucks. So, Rita, you are a hero to us all for running and doing so bravely and confidently and promoting the Green Party. That was a really wonderful thing that you've done, and we really appreciate you. So that's all for candidates we have right now. Jordan Connolly had got elected here recently to the Aina neighborhood board. So we actually have a Green elected in Hawaii. It's been several years. So hooray! We are now legitimately have a person elected in office, and that we need to get more. It's time to move into our business section.
Dave, I've got my hand up.
Yeah, I'm just going to comment on that. So please keep your comment or question short. I mean, very short, because we only have a few minutes left to do our business part. So go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, thank you for that. I will keep it short. My suggestion is to follow up after people talk, to also keep it brief. A couple of things, Jackie, I may have misunderstood what you said, but you said you need to be registered in a party to vote. And that is not accurate. In Hawaii, we do not register as a party. So when you go to the primary in August, you get all the parties and you choose which, but you have to vote only in one party. Now, there may be other things within the Democrat Republican Party. I don't know their rules. As far as Hawaiian sovereignty was in the very first 1992 state platform. However, we feel that it's not for us to decide which of, in those days, there was like 40 different organizations. It's that we support Hawaiian sovereignty. This should be an independent nation, and it's for the Native community, the Hawaiian community, to decide the form that they want. And I wasn't going to but I'll just make some quick on some things that Rita said. And thank you for mentioning me. I've been on the ballot 6 times for the county council. 3 of those times were partisan races. One of the races, I got 25 to 30% of the vote. So Greens can win, can get many votes, though I have not won. It's a benefit to have a Green on the ballot as people see that, oh yeah, there's still a Green party. So, and then I was on the last 3 times that I stood for office. I was the candidate for the state House of Representatives. And as Rita saw, you're in a district, so the people in your district see you. And the last thing is, yes, before I ran for office, I was involved in different issues in Hawaii, 92, 94, not as many. Since then, I constantly am at community meetings and water meetings and redistricting and whatever the issue might be, reapportionment, to be there and serving on. That's what it's great that we now have someone on a neighborhood board, which we only have in Oahu. So when you're involved and you're active, then people see that. It's both two-way street. And some of the things that Rita, you mentioned are things that, yes, people who've run before could have guided you on different ways that you can do that. However you do it, standing for office as a Green Party member is really important. So thank you for anyone that's considering it. Good luck, Jackie, if you do file.
Okay, thank you, Nick. I turn this over to Susan. We have some business to do here at the end. Go ahead, Susan.
Hi, guys. Aloha. So one thing we wanted to do was actually reach out to all the members that are on this this Zoom. It's not on the agenda, but I feel it's very important. I would like to go, I'll start with Sylvia, and then we'll move along the meeting. Just in 30 seconds or less, what island are you on? What time of day, AM, PM, and what day of the week would be best for a membership meeting? I really want to involve our members. We do a CC meeting for the county, for our council with business, but I really want to involve our members. And what's the one issue that you see that you can do best? What's the best use of your time for the Green Party of Hawaii? I'll start. Susan Roberts Emery, Big Island of Hawaii. PM is best for me, and basically any day of the week. So that's me. Sylvia, you go next.
Sylvia Litchfield, I'm on Maui. I'm pretty flexible, so I can meet pretty much any time. And most of my actions are going towards just the backroom operations of the Green Party of Hawaii. Thank you.
I'll just take over. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Dave.
Okay, just call people. I'm Dave Mullinex. I'm on Oahu, working on climate change and the leases. Turn this over to Jeff. Sorry, anytime, any day, except for Thursday and Sunday. Go ahead, Jeff.
Me? Okay. Hi, Julie with.
Okay, go ahead. Julie and Bob. There you go. You gotta unmute. You're muted. Go ahead, Julie and Bob.
Yes, Julie and Bob Jacobson on the Big Island. Any old time for meetings, and just I don't know if I can narrow it down to a certain issue, but I just urge candidates to be practical and do signage and that kind of stuff. And there's cheap ways to make signs with silk screening onto thin plywood and onto, shirts you can buy by the 50 at a time sort of thing to make it cheaper for you. But anyway, I just wanted to say, I guess, to just give, for those few of you who may not know, I was on the county council from Hawaii County Council 1998, and then reelected in 2000. And then had issues related to my parents needing care in the mainland. And then Bob got elected for the same seat, and he served 3 terms, 2002 to 2008. Anyway, but it's doable and important. And we were also, for those who don't know, represented by the first elected partisan Green, Keiko Bonk, in 1992. And she always sort of stood for getting elected at the local level and being effective and accomplishing concrete things. And I wouldn't have run if she hadn't asked me in 96. And I lost my first election and then won 2. And Bob won 3 and then lost his last one to a Tea Party. So it's a evolving thing. But anyway, glad to see so many people participating, and thank you those who did run. Aloha.
Thank you, Bob and Julie. Donna.
Okay, I am not even in Hawaii. I am in California, but I wanted to sit in on this meeting because I see Dave and some of the other people posting on, I'm a delegate to the National Committee, and I just wanted to see everybody's face and tell you how great you are and what an honor it is, Dave, to read your posts. And I just have so much respect for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Jackie.
Aloha kako, Jackie Keefe. I am on West Maui, and my schedule is a bit complex, so it's kind of constantly evolving. But I can always try to make something work. Unfortunately, if you choose something, I might say like I can or cannot. So sorry that I can't have more than that. But I think that for me, and I did throw this in the chat, but I think the most important thing that we can do is, at least at this moment, is to throw some voter registration drives. I think that's like huge right now. So
Great. Rita.
I think I'm in Jackie's camp there as well. I never know what my schedule is going to look like, a week in advance, but generally noon, because even if I'm working, I can always find an excuse to get out of work at noon, or evenings work best for me. Midweek evenings.
Okay.